saying goes. We do what we must to survive, Blitz. You are no better example of that. We may have gotten off on the wrong foot, as you say, but you have conducted yourself with honor so far. So until the time that you don't, I account you amongst my friends, and I don't have many of those. As for what you referred to earlier, job, treasure, and such, maybe. We'll see what the road of life has ahead of us. We have a long journey ahead of us. But if our paths shall cross again, you will be greeted as a friend. I guarantee that.
Okay, and he nods very seriously. And he looks over at you, Akama, and just kind of raises an eyebrow, kind of like, and where do you stand?
Well, I just want to let you know that there is no issue between us. It's just the way that I've been transformed or molded, so to say, throughout these past decades. So, regarding that issue, regarding the information of the transfer of information, we will see as time progresses. But as my brother Ymir over here has stated, you are considered as one of our friends, and I appreciate you in entirely of what you have brought to the table.
Okay, at this, he starts, like, just kind of nodding his head really slowly and thoughtfully, much more seriously than you've seen him be up to this point, which is a little striking. But yeah, he seems to be nodding along and kind of really absorbing what you're saying. He says, okay, good to know. This is all good stuff. He says, okay, so you guys are both in. We'll play it loosey-goosey at first, see how things go. I won't get my hand too far up your skirt, and you guys won't get your hand too far in my pocket until we know each other a little better. You know what I mean? And then we'll move forward. Maybe we can do some business. Maybe we'll just be cordial acquaintances. Who knows? But I'll let you know if anything comes my way. You might be interested. You do the same, and we'll see how she lays. Fair enough?
Ymir nods heartily.
Okay.
It's a striking one up and down one motion, as
Okay.
in complete agreement.
All right.
I
So
say, and then I put my hand out, kind of like in a fist, kind of like give him a fist bump.
okay. All right, and he does the same, and he goes, okay, and he says, he pulls out his little communicator, screen, and he goes, okay, and I got you. He starts kind of hitting some buttons on it, kind of entering a couple of little pieces of information. He goes, okay, I got you guys right here. When I tagged you the information, it gave me your telex signal so I can get a hold of you. He says, I got you guys right here. Excellent. And he holds the screen out so that you guys can see, and you see that the contact information he's filled out under the name of Shrimp Dick and Chuckles. And as he holds the screen back, he just looks at you and gets a big, broad smile and turns and starts kind of walking away really quickly. Apparently very satisfied with himself. All right. Now, going back to you, Ren, you're sitting across from Geiger right now, and as you're looking into her eyes, she seems completely composed now and ready to talk. So why don't we go ahead and take our break right there? We just hit the 2-hour mark. Let's go ahead and take our break for 5, and we can come right on back.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
I stopped recording.
I love you guys. All right.
Hit them with that blue steel, you know what I'm saying?
That was fucking hilarious, man. That was fucking hilarious.
like, the fuck you just say?
uh,
Everybody making fun of me. I'm
I
fucking destroyed
I
them.
don't know if Bear's mad at me right now, but I love you, bro.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm not. You thought you tried it. I think I turned it around.
Oh
I think
shit!
I flipped it on its head pretty
That was
nicely.
fantastic, bro. That was fantastic, man. All right, I'll be back, guys. I'll be back.
Yeah, man. So, I apologize. I was in the middle of dropping the deuce, but you were doing something with your ear, putting that shit in your ear, and it said there was not a lot of it.
So I mean, Ren was clueless of. Ren's constantly clueless of many things because he's just so not, you know, used to all these different things. He's used to where he's from, and he's also very curious and confused about things. So he's trying to
How do you
lighten up a little
think
bit.
Ymir's gonna feel when Geiger comes out of the bar a hot woman when she was a fucking cyborg? None of y'all have told me about that yet.
We haven't
So
had a chance to.
I know. I'm just saying, Ymir's
just
gonna.
like
You,
just like Odin
you
trying to give a
think
shit for
you're
not getting a communicator.
confused,
Like we've had any time to shop. We've had like one
right?
place. We had one place, and I didn't spend any money because apparently the thing I need is a nano fucking forge, and it was right there on sale. I was like, what the fuck? I can't buy anything now. Um. So yeah. So she had used several. I mean, she had taken a bunch of drugs. Uh. And then she freaked out and screamed the thing about, we're all slaves, things like that. And then he had mentioned that I had noticed that the last thing she took, that she had saved, like purposefully, was this, like, orange, like, kind of glittery looking jelly. And I apparently took note of that to an extent. Like, it was, like, very mindful that she took it after the fact or the latest or whatever like that. She'd set it aside, essentially, to use later. And then when she had asked me to come over to sit next to her because she was upset, and her head was down on the table as she was crying, she had grabbed my hand quickly that you had witnessed, but then she had done nothing else after that. But during that, she had actually placed a box in my hand, a small box.
Yeah, yeah.
The box was the container of that jelly. So I had gone to the bathroom to get a closer look at it. There wasn't much left. I didn't feel like it would do anything to me. But Ren, trying to not overanalyze things and try to figure things out and have his brain go nuts, he was just like, well, fuck it. I'll just to see what it does. Maybe I'll just use it. I know there's not much of it, so he used it just to see what it did. And it kind of caused him to calm and clarify things. But I believe, or like what Odin said, is like that Ren believes there's more to it than just that effect. That effect is what it can do, but there's possibly more to it. So that's what happened with that.
Oh, that's it. I mean, I guess I got that then. So there was
I
more
mean,
to it.
there's not. I mean, I took the little bit remainder in the residue that's in the box, and I'm gonna keep it so I can analyze it later in a lab setting. But no, that's I mean, that's not much more.
Yeah, maybe Ren could isolate that particular whatever it is in that and maybe figure out how to produce it en masse or something. Just that the calming chemical, because Ymir might need a lot of that if we go to space in a metal box. That's all I'm saying. That
Yeah, we'll call it Scarlet Witch. It'll be for the Hulk. Calm him
right,
down.
exactly. Who knew trying to get a sweet roll from my bear would be such an adventure?
Right? That was pretty exciting.
But I did get
All
a
right, I'm
brand new
back.
blunt out of it, so.
I got 5, so
How we doing, guys?
Good, sir.
chilling, man,
My
chilling.
coffee cup.
Nice. Kilo, AFK.
No, he's here.
I am IFK in front keyboard.
All right. Okay. Anybody need more time, or are we good?
He's making coffee.
Oh. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm probably need to smoke a bowl. It's been a while.
Hey, with these
support that.
communicators, you can use any telex number and call anywhere, or do I have to go somewhere specific?
Your impression is that when you're in a hub like this, it's not necessarily networked, but essentially, you within a place like this, you'd be able to do like site-to-site calls to people if you have their actual number. If you're trying to reach an organization or whatever that you don't have the actual ID for, you'd have to go to one of the little hub stations where you could kind of like look it up and reach out to them. Does that make sense?
Kinda
Because there's
Go
no real
to,
internet.
like a phone booth for your yellow pages.
Exactly. And because there's no real like web, it's not all like interlaced like that. You know what I mean? The
But
information
if
isn't
I'm-
all.
If I'm like in a forest or in a mountain setting and I have service and I have the phone number, I can make the call to anybody to have the phone number for.
No, and that's basically what I'm saying is that there's no long range communication anymore because there's no satellites. So the range on your guys' communicators is going to be a short range, and the only way for them to really reach out further than their normal physical range is if you're in a place like this where they essentially have like boosters set up everywhere, so that for the most part you're going to be able to reach whoever you're trying to in this area. Does that make sense? But as
So
soon
this
as
area,
you're
not
It
anywhere
it
else.
works like a phone, but as far as the range, it's more like a walkie-talkie or
exactly
kind of like.
exactly
But the functioning is still like you need to have that person's direct line or something like that. It's not channels like a walkie-talkie.
and
So
the
being
range.
in this area
Mhm.
won't let me go past this area.
correct, you can't call out from here unless you go to the telex hubs.
And
That's-
the telex hub itself is kind of like the landline from state to state.
Yes, that exactly. And it's like almost like the information center as well, where they can connect you and you would find information and shit like that on.
Gotcha.
It's like an old operator
making sure.
station or
Yeah.
something, right?
Exactly.
Mr. Operators. Hello, operator. How can I help you? Hey,
And-
can you transfer me to Bobby Stanley?
Keep in mind too that this is a voluntary kind of setup. So it's not like you can go to a telex hub and ask, hey, what's the number of the commander of the secret base up in the mountains at this, latitude and longitude? Like, unless a person signs up to be kind of on the system, they're not going to be, you can't really look up their information, their, not information, but their number, their contact ID, any of that stuff. So just keep that in mind. It's not really like, I mean, I guess in that way it's sort of like Yellow Pages, because that's how that always worked, is you had to sign up for it and all that shit. But yeah, I guess that is a good analogy. I guess it's sort of like Yellow Pages. Like if you don't actually put your number on it, it's not going to be there essentially. So
Yeah.
anyway, and we could say, I don't remember how they were described, but we could say they're just little kind of ear sets.
Oh, the communicators?
Yeah, because I think we described them as not very technologically sophisticated. They were pretty basic. We could say just small ear sets with a really stubby kind of antenna and just a small kind of protrusion that would, try and pick up your voice. And I think Bear for yours, it should just I mean I don't it wouldn't fit, right? So
Right.
I think a small or maybe more of like one of those large brick style
I mean,
walkie-talkies might be a
I would
little.
also probably take, and I could easily fabricate or make something that would adjust to his size from my.
Yeah.
You could. You absolutely could. Consider it'll have to be pretty beefy because if it gets hit by anything strong, it's going to basically fall into his ear canal. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Does that make sense? Like it's going to be a small piece inside of a housing, and if like a mega damage explosion goes off next to him, it might just tumble down into his ear canal. I'm just saying that's one of the things I could
I
see.
won't
So
feel it, but
no, but you'll hear a voice.
You
Nice.
hear that voice in my belly? I think I'm hungry.
Right.
Let me out. I'm
Red,
in the
get out
on
of my
the
head.
on the
Kama, get out of my head. All I hear is your voices now.
I
Get
see
out
it.
of my head.
Guys,
Right.
I just took a
Communicator in the corner.
I just
and
took a
it's just like,
shit and it's talking to me.
Right.
It sounds like a comma.
You guys torture him by
Hey,
turning
get
on
me
terrible
out.
music.
God.
All right. Okay, good shit. So we've got that all set. Let's go ahead and go live again and get back to it.
I was just gonna ask, how long are we going for? How long is this next block, this final block?
You guys tell me what do your schedules look like?
I'm free.
What are you thinking, Kilo? You and I are on the same time zone, so
I mean, we normally go to 7, and that's good for me because I'm pretty fucking exhausted these days. But I mean, if we want to go a little bit later, that's fine. But
What
Okay,
time is it now
yeah.
there?
that'd be like a little
hour.
That'd be like an hour basically. So I mean, so I don't want to like
yeah,
have to cut it short.
45 minutes to an hour. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Let's just shoot for an hour then.
Yep.
Sounds
Alright, I'm
goodly.
starting recording now.
All right, guys, we are back. We're gonna pick right up with Ren, who is sitting across from Geiger. She's just looking at you inquisitively, kind of waiting for whatever questions she's sure are bound to come. What would you like to do?
He'll just he'll look at her and just stare at her like right in the eyes and be like, "Do you trust me?"
And her eyebrows kind of go up a little bit, as if what you're saying is pretty unexpected. And she kind of stammers a little bit, and she says, I don't know you, but I know."
Exactly. I don't need you to say anything else. So, you have given me a ton of information, of knowledge, at presumptuously making me think that as like I should trust you in some way, which I don't. And not only do I not trust you, but you've also proven beyond a doubt that you openly lied to me.
Okay, and as you're saying this, she gets a small whisper of a smile and just slightly bows her head as you continue.
I want to know from you, what did I meet back at the monastery? What, by me learning this jump into technology, have I signed myself over to? I want to know what the fuck you say is real to an extent, because if you're trying to have me play these little games along with you, I need to be part of it as opposed to being just whatever the fuck I am right now.
Okay, she looks back up at you slowly, and this time her expression is replaced with that of a apex predator. She looks steely and stone-hearted and dead serious. Her mouth is closed, and it doesn't appear as though she's going to speak. In fact, she seems to be waiting for something with grim anticipation. She turns her head slightly to the right, as if listening to a voice that you cannot hear. And then she very lowly, in a growling whisper, says, "You said be honest. Am I supposed to tell him or not?" Okay, and at this, you see what looks like the flesh of her neck compress in the exact outlines of a humanoid hand, fingers wrapping around the throat and causing almost instantaneous pink outlines where the pressure is greatest. You see that as this happens, she grips the edges of the table strong enough to snap one of her acrylic nails on the edge.
Those are real.
Now, as she does this, she grips tighter, and she's kind of just barely is able to squeeze out the choked out words, "My apologies. Of course. Of course." At this, the pressure releases, and apparently the phantom hand withdraws back into the ether. Now at this, she holds one of her hands up to her neck and begins rubbing out the discomfort as best she can, while clearing her throat lightly, seemingly trying to get the wind back into her chest. She looks over at you and very lowly and slowly, she says, "What question may I answer? Tell me what you would like to know."
I believe I just asked those of you.
She says, "The one that I work for holds control over this form and the
Is that
other."
what that was just about? And I'll mention to her. Well, I'll motion towards her throat.
She nods and she says, "Indeed." She says, "I am its servant, now and forever."
Does
With
it
this,
see everything you see, or does it see everything you do?
it essentially, okay, she kind of stiffens up a little bit, and she says, "I cannot say." She says, "Perhaps a bit of both, perhaps something different that we are not aware of." She says, "All I can say is that I am watched and I am listened to."
He's thinking. He's just quiet for a moment because how did you make this pact? Or is this going too far to what you can say?
She says, "No, I've been told that I can give you the truth." She says, "In the world that I come from, I had certain gifts." She says, "Many among the populace had similar gifts and used them either for ill or the benefit of those around them." She says, "When I was brought to this world, something shifted." She says, "I was touched by an outside force." And then she makes a flourish with her wrist of her left hand, at almost kind of holding her wrist out to you. And basically the gesture implies, "And here we find ourselves today."
Do you Obviously, you speak English. Do you understand the written form of this language? Can you write it? Can you read it?
She giggles and she says, "Of course." She says, "The the world that I come from was quite advanced, especially compared to this one." She says, and strangely enough, it was the same place, just a different where. She says, I'm very familiar and comfortable with several of the languages used in this part of the world.
Could I possibly see your arm? And I'll motion like towards my own forearm, like the underside of my forearm. Can I just like rub my thumb across it? May I see your arm?
She looks a little confused but nods, and she actually unzips a long zipper on the back of the sleeve and rolls the whole kind of assembly up and lets you see her bare flesh, her arm. Now, she does still have her glove on that hand, but the skin is exposed.
I will, with my fingernail, or not fingernail, the tip of my finger, because I don't have fingernails on my hands, will write, can't, or do, I'll write it slowly on her arm. Do you understand this? And then I'll pause for a second. Blink twice if you do. And I'll write it fairly slow, but it's just like, writing on her skin.
Okay, and as you do, she just smiles slightly, and then as soon as you look up, she blinks twice. And then she says, "Yes, it is completely human flesh." She says, "When I transform, I take on biomechanical properties, a kind of living technology. It's quite incredible."
And she's saying this, I'll start writing on her arm again while saying, it's amazing. I would think something that covered your body before would have to be something, and I'll just start, spitting off some blah, blah, blah. And I'll write, I will try to communicate with you through this. Let me know if they catch on or if they can tell what was being said here.
Okay, and at this, she blinks twice again as you look up, and she responds to your kind of, banalities with some more similar kind of platitudes and just kind of stretches the conversation out for a moment, and seems to agree. So
Then I'll just finish up by exposing my arms and showing some of my things and just kind of bullshitting along with, what I've done to my arms. Basically, having a semi-serious conversation about my work I've done as far as techno-wizardry into the mechanics of my arms and limbs, but it's more of just kind of like, we're doing this to play out the little bit that we just did, just to kind of...
okay. You still see that there doesn't appear to be anybody really taking any notice. You would assume other people see this and just think people are showing off their cybernetics or bionics, which are
this is honestly
completely common.
This is more for the one that's watching her. Not
Oh, absolutely. I'm
yeah.
just saying, as far as the bar patrons go, it's still just smooth sailing. So, you go ahead and do that, and you notice that she seems to actually take genuine interest in this. She doesn't seem to be kind of, trying to use subterfuge or any kind of secret communication. She's just kind of like actually interested in what you've set up here and the technology that you've created. After you kind of show this to her, she looks at you seriously and leans forward, folding her hands in front of her, and she says, "But time is always short." And she kind of looks off in the distance just a little bit kind of melancholy. And then she refocuses on you and she says, "And some questions hold the key to one's future and fate." She says, "So ask them quickly and ask them well. What else would you know?" Now, at this point, we're going to switch over to Akama and Ymir, you guys have basically, you were heading back over to the bar, correct? Or did I?
Indeed.
Correct.
Okay, so you guys reach the outskirts of the bar once again, and you see that Wotek is slumbering very comfortably in the corner. In fact, a couple of local children have kind of walked up to him and decided that it would be a very brave thing to place some flowers gently around the sleeping bear's head. And you see that he's snoring, but he obviously is faking it, Ymir. You know this creature well enough to know that he would never snore so loud as to get killed by one of the wandering war bands, and this makes a mockery of even that level. So he's just kind of playing along with the children, and as you guys begin approaching, he kind of makes a couple of snorts and kind of shakes his haunches a couple of times, appearing like he might wake up. And the children just kind of squeal in glee and run off, trailing flowers in the air behind them, obviously delighted by their interaction with such a magical creature. And you see him slowly open one eye that's facing you, and then it looks to the sides slowly, scanning for the presence of said children. And when he finds them to truly be gone, he slowly starts rousing himself and raising back up to his feet. You guys
Still
get
hol-
you
Oh,
guys
I
get
was
right
just
up to
going
that area, and you're good to go. What would you like to do?
still holding the chunk of giant pastry for his brother in his hands that he collected from the baker. Ymir slowly makes his way over to Wotek and places the treat gently near his mouth so he can feast on it. And he just gives him a hearty pat on the side because he knows he's been eyeballing it for as long as he has, and he was so patient, especially with the small ones and their even smaller ones that they have, which are very tiny compared to him and his brother. So to reward him for how good he's being, basically, he drops the big chunk of pastry right in front of Wotek
All right,
before
you
reaching
go to
his
drop
feet.
it, and he rushes forward like a little blur, and actually like bites it out of your hand like a fucking dog not waiting for a treat. He's so excited. And as he does so, he doesn't quite nip you, but it's close enough that you're like, "What the fuck?" Like
Fuck.
you definitely are kind of like, "Dude, come on, man. There's no reason for that." Um,
Look at him with scolding eyes. Then right afterwards, still happy that because I'm rewarding him. But Ymir kind of gives him the stern look, like you could have been, you could have been a better boy right then.
So he just kind of obviously gets that little brief look of shame and then retreats back to use his paws to start pulling some of the cannoli goo off of his
Yeah.
fucking muzzle and be able to properly eat it. Very, very happy with the kind of 20-minute meal he's going to have now, cleaning himself up.
Indeed.
So as you do that, through one of the open doors, you both are able to see Geiger and Ren sitting at one of the tables, kind of off, I guess, towards the side of the interior. And you both are able to see that apparently the conversation's going fine. He seems to be showing off his limbs to Geiger, and they seem to be having a very pleasant time indeed. Everything in the bar looks very calm. What would you two like to do?
I'm gonna look at Ymir and basically say, "Oh yeah, that reminds me. I got a question. Don't take this as kind of like a disrespectful question, but I just wanted to know, do you check Wotech for like being like hygienic or anything like that? Like, do you go comb through his fur to find any type of parasites or anything or any of that nature?"
In the wilderness, we survive. We go many months sometimes and run into many things within the forest that seek just a home sometimes. You'll find in nature everything has a balance. There's a symbiotic, sometimes parasitic, but most of times symbiotic relationship. Why, brother? Why do you ask?
I was hanging out with Botek for just a small bit of a time, and he came up to me regarding something not so pleasant happening somewhere around his ear. I actually remedied the issue. He seemed very excited and pleased that it's no longer bothering him, but it was some type of uh, spore or some type of how you call it, fungus that was like growing inside of his ear. But I just wanted to at least infer the information to you because not sure what transpired, but at least some type of notice to give to you regarding the situation.
Ymir being very gracious at what Akama did, apparently noticing something, some sort of abnormality with Wotek, and not only that, but remedying it, bringing relief to him. He puts his arm over his heart, his large arm over his heart, and bows very deeply at him and goes, "Please tell me how I will keep an eye out on exactly what you have described. Please tell me how did you said you remedied the situation. How was that possible?"
Well, if anything, he had brought it to me. And I was actually outside indulging into some snaggleweed from our friend Blitz. And I don't know. He seemed like he smelled the aroma, and I kind of, blew some smoke his way. Maybe he enjoys it himself, but it became to a point where he was trying to point out that maybe this will remedy it. Maybe he's a doctor in his own state of mind. I'm not quite too sure, but I ended up sending some smoke his way, and it entered his ear area, and it seemed like it fixed it.
So you say the snaggleweed smoke killed these spores or lessened their effect?
Yeah, but pretty much it looked like it disappeared. I tried to use my flashlight and I didn't see any type of residue or anything that was there still. It just diminished. It just dissipated.
Akama, roll a perception check for me. You guys might as well just keep that perception check pulled up. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I'm about to just go back to school for rolling.
All right. All right. You feel like something is catching your eye moving past your sight line, but by the time you look, it's already gone. Anyway, continue with your conversation.
Mother lover. I kind of like looked, but basically disregarded it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
It's
like
one
I
of
was
those
saying, I don't
moments.
know. It just seemed like it disappeared.
Well, I have an eye for mushrooms, so I shall keep an eye out for next time to see if these spores return. If they do, we know a temporary remedy at the very least. But if it gets any worse, we may have to seek other methods in order to cure it. But I
I
appreciate
understand.
you looking out for my shield brother. that shows me quite a bit more, even, Brother Akama.
I'm just glad that I was here to be of an assistance.
All right. With that, we're going to switch over to you, Ren. She is now sitting, looking you right in the eye, and she says to you, so what are the most pressing questions that would help?
Well, nothing against you, but I feel my situation changes a bit, knowing that there are others listening.
And she nods, honestly.
What have I agreed to thus far? Either of you can answer, I'll say.
She says, as far at this, she smiles slightly and she says, "Alas, I'm the only one here at the moment." She says, "So far, really nothing." She says, "From what I understand, those that make a true bargain are taken on a path of many steps before their way and their destination is solidified." She says, with an eyebrow arched, "One could even argue that played correctly, a mortal could get the best end of this bargain by far." And then she looks at you very seriously, as if to denote the seriousness of her statement.
Why did you decide to put yourself in the position that you are in?
She smiles weakly at this and says, "I did not." She said, "Mine is a complicated story. And as I said, upon arriving in these lands, myself and all of the members of Metadyne who made the sojourn were altered for better or ill to the man." She says, "Even the most powerful of us were laid low by maladies of either body, mind, or spirit, while most of our powers were increased exponentially." She says, "And so, in this new land, we are desperate to seek out a foothold and a starting point to call home." She says, "This is why we participate in the games."
What are the games?
She says, "I believe you and your group have come here for the same reason." She says, "To go through the trials and establish oneself as a full mercenary force in these lands." She says, "Although we are many hundreds strong, we still need associations and some of the benefits that would come along from winning this contest among warriors." She says, "And so I was dispatched as a liaison to your team in order to see if you would be a good fit with us moving forward in these trials." She says, "There are many opportunities to be had, not just to join the KeterFall Corps and that rabble, but also to become affiliated with one of the other entities participating." She says the possibilities are literally endless where one could end up after all of this is said and done.
The this thing I spoke to, this thing that you are a servant to, does it have a name?
She says, "Why, yes, I thought you had already heard." She says it is called the Formula.
I. That's it.
And she smiles and she says, "What more do you need?"
Fair enough, I guess.
She says, "I could tell you its name, but it's one of those ridiculous scenarios where one would have to rip out one's own tongue and stand upside down for an hour to let the blood rush out and gush upon the floor, making squishy, squelchy noises as one did handstands and gutturally
I
mumbled
get it.
things, so..."
Do you have a name besides what I know you as before you became indentured into this formula?
She looks a little downtrodden at this and kind of looks down and says, "I am simply we now. We are Geiger."
You being now we, do you still have your own thoughts? Your own likes, dislikes?
She nods and she looks up at you and says, "This is why these times of brief respite are so potent, so intoxicating to me." She says, "It is all that I have left as me."
Well, do you have a favorite color?
She just waves her hands down and smiles and says, "Obviously."
And what is it?
She says,
Meaning black?
she says, "Black."
So you're one that believes that black is a color as opposed to the absence of or the inclusion of all color?
And she arches an eyebrow at you and says, "And you're one of those guys who will ask a question like that to a woman like me."
I had
Gotcha.
to take art classes. I took art classes when I was younger. I apologize.
All right, so she rolls her hand in a keep 'em coming kind of motion. Let's switch over really quick. Akama and Ymir, you guys are outside the bar. What are you guys doing?
Right now, we just had the conversation. From Ymir's vantage point, I can see Geiger. You said we would, at least from where we're standing. I can't enter the building, but from where I'm standing, I can see both Ren and Geiger now in her current form.
Yes. You see Ren talking to that individual, yes. I don't believe you've had interaction with this so far.
No, I haven't seen her in this form, but I see. I'm just getting a locational reference. That's all.
Yeah, you're basically looking into like some large open front doors on the bar, and it's, wide open, so you're able to see kind of off down one whole side of the bar, and they're sitting at a table kind of, in 20, 30 feet away from the door.
Okay, well, Ymir flashing an eye inside the bar and noticing it, and noticing that their much more technologically inclined compatriot is not with them. Ymir kind of flashes a look at Akamo and says, "Where is Geiger?"
She's sitting right next to Ren.
Ymir gets very stern and goes, "What magic is this? What trickery is this? What we saw before was a cybernetic being. How
Maybe
is
it's
this
Maybelline.
Geiger?"
She recently transformed into this humanoid form. Not sure how, but that's who she is.
Ymir grunts. I don't like this.
All
I
right.
totally
Do what we
understand.
do what we must. Keep her around, but I don't like this. Not one bit. Steel yourself a comma. We know not what game he plays.
Aye, aye,
Okay.
brother.
All right. So um, you guys have this little exchange, and you see that they're still just talking inside. Is there anything else that you guys want to do?
Ymir, knowing that he can't go inside, just kind of wants to separate himself because he's confused right now, and it's kind of upset the mood that he was in. He was in a somewhat positive, or his confidence was higher, and he was sort of riding a high before. Now something has disturbed that in him. So he bids Akama adieu and says, "I'll be waiting outside by Wotek. I have reached out to talk to the blacksmith Lars and offered him to share a cup here with me so we can talk. If you have need of me, simply only yell. I will come."
I will bow and say, will do. Before anything, you look a little stressed. Do you mind if and I reach into my pouch and I pull out a cigar that is filled with some good, uh, that was given to me by BB and say, I acquired this when we were in Smuggler's Cove by our beautiful attendant BB. Would you like to indulge with me for the time being while we wait for your companion to come for this wonderful, glorious drink?
And sort of being thankful, but still being frustrated, he graciously nods his head and says, "Yes, perhaps I just need to relax, take a cue from my brother, and relax, at least for now. We have a long journey ahead, and I would like to get the lay of the land. I know we must continue on here soon, but I must stay to complete our projects, or the projects that I promised you that I would start working on. So I must mentally prepare myself."
Don't be in such haste, my brother. As of this moment, this is a cool, calm, and collective situation. As of this moment, everything is going as planned, as foretold in the many journeys we've came across.
In
Shit
my
ain't funny.
culture, Brother Akama, the maidens of fate, the ones loyal to my lord Vidar, love to play their games with the fates of all of us. Gods, beings like me, beings like you, even the mortals, they enjoy their petty games. There is no safe where I'm from. I only seek solace while we are here, but I must never lose my edge, for we not know what dangers are around every corner, even in a place like this.
Correct. I feel the same way as I light the blunt.
All right. As you light it up, all kinds of small kind of crackles and flares of blue fire kind of erupt out in little gouts in a rather spectacular little pyrotechnic display that's obviously on purpose. And as it settles in, it turns into a nice kind of shining yellow and purple streaked kind of cherry on the end of it. And it's giving off this really, really nice aroma, something between something between like maple and cotton candy, just a really pleasing, sweet kind of aroma. And as you take your first hit, you could tell that whatever the fuck this is pretty fucking potent. Not putting Atlantean on the floor, but pretty fucking strong because right away you get a nice little head change. And as you pass it over to Ymir, you're incredibly careful with it, but you still feel like you might have trouble actually gripping this thing without literally just ripping the wrapping to pieces. And so, how do you want to go about doing this? You really don't think you can hold this and do it. Does that make sense? It's like it'd be like you trying to hold like a very delicate toothpick that you could just absolutely obliterate. So do you want to?
I mean, what were you gonna say? I don't
I
wanna
I
interrupt
was
you,
just gonna say if there was some other option you wanted to take, if you want to try and do this, you know that there's a good chance you're gonna kind of shred it. Does that make sense? So you'd have to make at least a roll to make sure you didn't like just in pinching your fingers together on it, not just basically.
Right, right. I was thinking maybe pinch it like a roach clip, but
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you could try, but you'll probably have to make a roll. So
okay. I go ahead.
if you're interested, it's up to you.
Is there a way for me to pull out something from my bag that's kind of like those old school cigarette holders, kind of like a stick that holds up
Like a Marlin Spike, like from Fear and Loathing kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
You don't have one of those on you. But you would guess they're probably available all over the place in a place like this. I mean, you've already seen lots of, different storefronts that would have shit like that. I'm not trying to throw anything unreasonable in your guys' path to continue. I just want to
We're
make
just
sure.
trying to indulge,
I know
man.
you guys just want to smoke, but it's like, how how does he smoke it? So,
Can I give him a shotgun?
yeah, you could. I mean, to be honest, you could probably hold it for him and just hold it up to his mouth if you don't
I
have
look
any.
at him oddly and I request. It seems that you might have some trouble holding it. I give you 3 options. 1, I can hold it and you can puff on it. 2, I can probably give you kind of like one of those old school shotgun style smokes. Or 3, do what you gotta do.
Ymir, looking down at Akama, turns his palms up and looks at his massive mitts, considering the 3 options that Akama just gave him. And he chuckles to himself because he thinks, what would the other warriors of the Dire Bear clan back in Jotunheimer think of him now? Him being so large that he can't even smoke this tiny little thing. He is too big for this world. And that chuckle, that story that concocts in his head and the thought makes him think, why not? This is my tale, and this is a good story that Akama and him can tell. Maybe, hopefully, sometime later in their adventure. Maybe when things are rougher. So Ymir chuckles.
Well, and it makes
and
you
gets
think fondly of the pipe that you had back in your homeland. Of unfortunately, something that didn't make the voyage with
no,
you, but you
indeed,
used to have something like that. So
indeed. So Ymir gets down and almost a knightly pose, like he was being knighted, right? He gets down basically in a knightly pose, and he goes, brother, if you would do the honors, I would be happy to share this with you. And he kind of just kneels down, like I said, knightly, getting ready for Kama to put it put the blunt in his mouth.
Yeah.
And
Y'all
make
getting
a joke.
close. All right. All
And right
right.
before I do it, I look at him and I say, let's find something to help you out in the future. So this is not a everyday thing. And then
Ymir looks at a comma and goes, "But brother, the saga, the saga. We must tell our stories."
Oh, that's great.
this is kind of like a one night stand, so to say. So let's not not get ahead of ourselves.
Ymir cocks his head at the expression because he's unfamiliar with certain customs of this land still and phrases, and sort of cocks his head, but understands where his compatriot is coming from and just chuckles along and goes, "Yes, yes, yes. After we have our conversation with Lars, hopefully we will meet back up with our brother Ren inside, and we will continue on together, seeing what this district and what lies beyond has to offer. We must keep our eye out in the future."
And I go ahead and I give a nice nod, and I plant the blizzy in his in between his
Gent-
lips.
Gently on my giant lips.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, so gently. All right. So as you do that, you try really hard not to just hotbox that whole mother in one fucking hit.
Absolutely.
And but you take a nice big pull, and it definitely gives you a nice head change right off the bat. You feel good in the gooch, man. Everything is 5x5. As you guys are getting high, we're gonna switch back over to Ren. Ren, she's looking at you, still just waiting for whatever questions you want to ask. In fact, Geiger says to you, keep in mind, I was told to be honest, so ask the big ones. You get the feeling that she's definitely trying to walk you through whatever she can help with in the most positive way possible. Like, that's at least how she's coming across to you, although this individual has made it obvious that, subterfuge is a thing with her.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if he's aware of, or I'm aware of, even what like the big one could be at this moment.
You get the sense she just means kind of broadly, don't worry about the scale of the question, like whatever kind of, the priority things you're wanting to know, this is the time. So, not necessarily that there's one right question, but
I know. I just
You
feel like
know.
me and him are still too unaware of the everything going on to grasp. It's like, what do you want to know? And it's like, oh, I haven't experienced enough to know what to ask you.
what I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what's the meaning of life? It's like, lady, I'm 5. I don't fucking. That's not my question. I want to know what comes on after my TV show.
Right.
Who does number 2 work for?
So yeah.
She holds up 2 fingers and looks over at a hovering fairy at the bar and says, just points down at the table and overly dramatically mouths the words fucking food and keeps pointing down several times. And then she gives the bar a thumbs up and looks back over at you and says, sorry, continue.
I feel like since I've left where I've been doing my best to not be noticed, to not be found. And it seems like everyone's having the easiest problem finding me. And they don't know me, but they seem to know enough to know things about me, and I don't know. How did you find me? Why were you chosen to? How did you find me? How did you know about me? How did you know to find me?
Okay, at this, she slaps both hands flat on the table and looks up at you and says, finally, with a wolfish grin on her face. And she says, now that's a good question. She points up with a delicate finger to your head and she says, whatever you have up there went out like a bell across the megaverse. She says it caught the attention of a whole lot of different powerful entities out there. Something like that falling into the hands of a mortal, oh, that's like a nuke being out on the open market. And she says, so you've got people looking for you, brother. And then she leans back and takes a long finishing pull of her whiskey.
Can you die?
She nods almost incredulously, like, what kind of question is that? Of course I could die.
Then why do people constantly always call people that have maybe a shorter lifespan mortals? You're mortal too.
She says,
And that's not
again,
just you. It's from books I've read as a child. It doesn't make any sense to me.
she smiles and she says, again, I'm a special case. She says, back in my land, there was a tale in comic books of a hero that had two personalities. She said, one weak and one strong. She said, in a lot of ways, I guess I'm like that character. She says, even when the weak one would die, the tale went that the strong one would live on to the end of time. So in a way, I'll never really die, whether I want to or not.
You a baby's kid? Okay. So, this is a question for you. Have I let her know about what I saw, the image, or does she already know about this somehow? Like, I can't remember now from our conversations that we had.
So you had the impression that Geiger was present while you were having that kind of conversation with that entity.
Yeah. With the
Okay.
entity of my vision, or or with.
No,
Or,
with the entity from the monastery.
okay, yeah, okay.
So insofar as all of that information being exchanged, you feel like she probably has that.
So this, whatever it was I found,
Mm-hmm.
has basically, in a sense, put a beacon on my head. You're saying.
She nods and kind of starts glancing around the table for any other substances, but unfortunately she's run out. And she looks back over at the bar, snaps her fingers a few times over her head. When she gets someone's attention, she makes a couple more really frantic motions for them to hurry up with more food. At this point, she says, drink too, lots of it, and keep it coming. And then she turns back to you and says, sorry. She smiles kind of meekly and says, like I said, I'm on a timer.
When this timer triggers, all the stuff that you're doing right now, does that just get wiped? Are you just sober again?
She says, I never cease. The coin simply flips. I'm fully aware of everything.
Like your riddles. Do you know who all knows about this thing I found? Or do they even know what I found? Or are they just grasping at this release of whatever it is, power, knowledge, energy.
Okay, a fresh plate of wings comes over with several delectable sauces. It looks quite inviting. And as she picks one up with her kind of delicate fingers and dips it in a what you would guess to be blue cheese, she starts smacking away on it and talking in between bites. And what she winds up saying is, all of the entities and factions searching for it are aware of what its basic potential is. She says some of them have knowledge of what it can truly do in the hands of the right individuals. She says, but yes, they know what they're looking for and that you have it.
And how do they know it's me? How? Do I?
She says, let me explain something to you that may be a bit hard to fathom. She says, where I come from, there's a kind of supernatural, a kind of unnatural. And that is represented as individuals having super abilities. Metas, a lot of regular citizens would call us. She says, again, one kind of strange or other. She says, another kind that you know about is magic. She says, still another are psionics. She says, electromagnetism, gravity, all of these forces, although difficult to quantify and manipulate, have principles, rules, an origin, and a place in things. She says demonic and angelic are of a similar like. She says, but there are other forces. She says other things from other places. And she says, one of these that I have heard of and seen with my own eyes is called anomalies. She says, these things are chaos given form. She says, but often their very nature is strange, alien, or otherworldly, and can even defy all measure of scientific exploration and classification. She says, I have heard that the place that these things come from and this type of disturbance manifests from is a place of great chaos where these types of things run rampant and cause mass destruction across every type of civilization that comes across them. She says, certain entities and organizations are interested in harnessing the destructive potential of these anomalies. She says, some of these anomalies are living creatures, some are plant-like entities, some are alien intelligences, some are just simple sources of power, all the way down to the most benign seeming pencil that is able to seemingly break reality in some meaningful way. She says the point of this is they are always on the lookout, those that are sensitive to these things, for these kinds of anomalies, especially when they're in play and in the hands of those that do not understand, appreciate, or have the power or will to properly control and keep them. Again, like a nuke on the open market. She says, but in this case, the nuke is sensed by all the other nukes out there that happen to have an ability to be sensitive to their brethren. She says,
Is there a way I can hide this?
she smiles and kind of bows her head slightly and says, "None that I know of, sir."
Thank you for your honesty.
She says, "My recommendation would be for you to learn how to harness whatever is up there to your own advantage as quickly as possible to put yourself on the board as an actual player." She says, "Once power like that is claimed," and she makes air quotes, she says, "it's much harder for independent agents and the unaffiliated to come seeking it." She says, at that point, you may be able to become, in a sense, registered in a community of similar beings in order to enjoy the protections that that would afford. She says it would also come with responsibilities, to be sure, as well. Okay. She says, "What else?" and makes a rolling gesture with her hand as she continues stuffing her face.
Ugh. Were you chosen to join this group because of me?
She just nods. Just a straight nod.
What is the goal of me? You befriending me being sought out by your keeper. What's the purpose?
Okay, at this, she kind of slows down eating and then drops the chicken wing in front of her. She picks up a napkin and starts cleaning her face and fingers. You look down and realize she's done so to about a dozen wings now. She looks up at you as she cleans up and she says, "When I transformed, it was from a command you gave me, yeah?"
Okay.
And she says, "And that command was given to you by someone, yeah?"
Okay.
And she says, "I'm your someone that can give you commands if you ever fall under sway."
I want that.
What's that?
Why would I want that?
She says, "I'm not saying you do. I'm simply saying there's an order. And as people are recruited, they fall under the wing as an initiate of an elder." She says, "I would be your elder."
Like a pyramid scheme.
She at this, she like actually barks out a pretty sharp, high-pitched laugh. You would guess it's the first genuine one you've heard. And she looks at you and her eyes kind of glitter a little bit as you see a savage flare of the kind of humor found in the eyes of a prisoner whose jailers have all died and he realizes he's going to starve to death. That kind of maniacal, like, yes, indeed, we are seriously fucked kind of perspective is represented in the laugh. And she just nods in acquiescence.
This thing I found. Who did it? I've been told that it possibly belonged to. I was told by the that it was possibly Splurge Roof technology, correct?
She nods and she says, "More like an offshoot of an offshoot, but yes."
Like second cousins.
She says, "Indeed."
So, are these a powerful people, or is this almost a fluke that they discovered?
She says, "Think of it as a kind of technology that exists, a kind of knowledge that has a physical form."
I'm
She
just
says,
wondering
She
Wouldn't it be easier
says,
to find a whole group of people as opposed to one particular person who is unaware of what they even found? It just seems.
she says, I see. She says, essentially, from what I understand, the craft you found was transporting very valuable cargo. She says, essentially, it was a splinter of the being that you've been contacting. She says, that splinter worked its way in, and now it's a part of you. Hence where we are now. She says, and just like radioactive dye introduced to the body for imaging, she says it's giving off a kind of signal, a kind of signature. And anybody with the right kind of glasses is able to see it from across the megaverse.
Yeah, you've made that abundantly clear, but you don't know how I can prevent this.
She says no.
So essentially, anyone I'm around, I am putting in indirect or direct threat.
She shrugs her shoulders at this and says, true, but look around you. She says, 'tis a dangerous land indeed. Wouldn't you agree? She says, death literally hangs around every corner, and so one does what one must to survive.
Ha ha ha, Tisby. But I do feel that it'd be best of me to share this, at least, knowledge with my companions.
All right,
So
she
they
just
have a
shrugs
heads
and
up.
goes back to eating.
That's not gonna cause your boss to get mad and choke you out again if I tell them.
She shakes her head and says, you're under no obligation as of yet, sir.
So I'm in no threat of getting choked out myself by invisible hands yet.
She just shakes her head, looks a bit put off by the cavalier note
And
in
you're
your
saying,
voice.
and you're saying that I'm a bit away from before that starts happening to me. If I
She nods.
can you, I guess this would probably not work, but can you advise me on how to not fall down the path that you've gone, so I'm not, as you said, we're all slaves?
She kind of shrugs a little bit and just says, as I believe it told you, when you're ready to summon it, it will come. She says, the path towards it is one of willingness and honesty. She says, only if you wish to advance your knowledge of what you're seeking will you move down this path.
Telling me all these things about honesty, yet you have deceived me multiple times, and this entity has not told me anything about what could happen to me by me following and contacting it and learning from it. So honesty is what it wants to learn from me, but it's not an honesty relationship. It's just it wants me to be honest towards it. That is not something I want to be part of. And if it was honest to me, I would have known that. I
Okay,
probably wouldn't have
at,
this one bit of knowledge that it gave me, although
at this
it
she
makes
chuckles a little bit and she says, you're speaking as though you think it's some kind of mortal mind you're dealing with. She says, you know better than this. She says, I'm sure you're well versed in the arcane and exactly what kind of personalities one deals with when dealing with entities beyond human ken. She says, it's similar to ascribing human thought to an ant. She says, their motives are unknowable, but we can count on the physics and the concrete foundations of what is known of their bargaining practices. And she says, we know roughly what can be believed and counted on and what can't. And so we move forward on that information. She says, again, good wizard. It is entirely up to you how you wish to proceed. She says, I can tell you that when you're ready to request another audience, I can grant it for you almost immediately.
I don't feel like I want another audience with what you've told me.
And she just smiles behind her chicken wing as she eats it. Not a vicious smile, but a good for you kind of energy to it. So
What happened to your family? What happened to your friends? What happened to where you're from? Why are you no longer there?
she says, as I said, we got pulled into a strange land. She says, unfortunately, it was not planned, and so we had to make the most of our new environment. She says, but unfortunately, my friends, my family, all were lost to the voyage we were thrust into. She says, until I return to my home world, I'll have no knowledge of how things have proceeded in my absence, or if I'll even be able to return to the same time. She says, but it is our hope, at least some of those within my troop, to one day see the blue skies and fertile lands of our homeworld again. And she continues just kind of picking at some chicken and eating. Let's switch over to, now that you guys have had a few minutes to talk, Akama and Ymir, what are you guys up to?
We're finishing off this beautiful blizzy.
How much time do we have real quick? I just want to check with you guys.
Yeah, not much.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
already
go ahead and start wrapping it up.
8:05.
Okay. So why don't, let's just, you guys go ahead. We'll just wrap up with you.
So I look at Ymir and I say, hey, I'm kind of getting a little. I'm kind of getting to that point where I'm getting the munchies. Would you care for some food?
Ymir gives out a hearty chuckle, saying or hearing Akama talk about the munchies, and out of his pack he pulls some of the pastry and tears off a pretty sizable chunk, about the size of Akama's fist, off the fresh pastry that he just got from the bakery across the street, and hands it out to Akama
Ooh.
in a gesture of friendship, loyalty. In his culture, to offer somebody bread or mead is one of the highest honors that a warrior can grant after battle, or just even relaxing. It's considered a strong gesture. So he breaks off a piece of it and hands Akama a large piece of the pastry.
Okay, now, as you guys are doing this, you hear a pretty deep kind of chuckle coming from somewhere back towards the street. And you hear a flint sparking sharply and a muffled kind of draw. As you look up, you see that Lars from the blacksmith shop has finally shown up. He got your message and apparently is either off or taking a break from work. He's standing there still with his leather apron on, dirty as fuck, but he's got a huge corncob pipe that he's got slowly stoking with a really crude, old-fashioned kind of golden lighter. The old
rubbing it in Ymir's face.
The old flick style.
Look at my pipe.
And as he starts
Laughing at us.
as he takes a few slow pulls, he looks over at you guys and he says, in with a thick kind of Russian kind of cadence to his voice, he says, You boys having a smoke? And then kind of chuckles a couple of times and takes a nice deep hit. Anybody say
Uh,
anything?
Something about
Ymir,
like that.
Ymir, noticing Lars coming up the street, is very excited. Hold on 1 second. Fucking monitor. Ymir is very excited to see Lars walk up the street, and he raises his hands in kind of revelry and goes, "Lars, join us. Come inside. Um, I will offer my credits and get yourself some food and drink, and come out here, and we shall discuss. We shall break bread and make conversation.
Okay,
There are things."
he holds a hand up and he goes, brother, you don't want to eat here. Not in this place. He says, come. He says, gather your party, come with me. Let's go quickly. He says, I have somewhere to take you that you will feel much more at home.
Intrigued, Ymir looks at Akama like, "Are you okay with accompanying us?"
And I look at Ymir, then look back at Lars, and then look at Ymir again, and then I give a slight nod. Like, yeah, sure, why not?
Okay?
Okay, then Ymir looks over at Lars and goes, "Lars, my brother Smith, may my battle brother Akama accompany us, and my shield brother Wotek. As you can tell, he is very large, and a lot of the places in this area are not meant for men of our size."
He nods and he goes, of course. He says, again, you will be comfortable, brother. Come with me. At this, he turns and pulls out whatever kind of strange communicator that you had seen before, the kind of flat, just plane of glass. And he starts tapping in some information on it. You don't know exactly what he's doing. What would you guys like to do?
Um, I am. I'm debating on going inside and let Ren know what the situation changed, the change of pace that we're going to be shooting for. So, I go ahead and put my hand on Ymir's shoulder, and that's pretty high. What's this, 7?
Yeah,
Like double my size.
jump up and touch the
Uh,
net.
Grab my elbow.
Basically. Yeah, what am I? Am I a fucking kid or something?
Squeezes wheatus.
I go and I kind of do like a fist bump to his side and just say, I will make sure Ren understands where we're going so he's not worried about our situation.
Okay. So you head inside, and what do you want to say to him? Ren, he walks up to you as you guys are at this point in the conversation. He walks up, Geiger looks over at him and just kind of gets just a faint smile and nods towards you, Akama. And what do you want to say to Ren?
So as I get to the table, I say, greetings. Uh, just to inform you, before anything, do we is our communicators already with our? I guess we all have our own phone number, so to say.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go ahead and infer information to Ren, and I say, our companion Ymir had made contact with his fellow blacksmith, and he would like us to change our location to a much more, how you say it, uh better location for resting.
Okay,
Just want
at this,
to
Geiger barks out a laugh, and as she's still looking down, taking a sip of her other drink, she goes, he means the row.
Like
I look
fish. Or
I look
like,
I look puzzled as fuck. Like what?
She looks up at you
Oh,
guys, seeing that you're a little confused, and she goes, "Oh no, you're gonna have a great time. That's where I've been wanting to go." She gets up very quickly and starts just kind of setting herself back up and in place, and starts walking towards the door. She looks over at the bar and she goes, "Go ahead." And you guys see that the bartender just nods at her and starts adding up some calculations, obviously running her bill. And Geiger just starts walking right out at hearing that people are wanting to head to the row.
all right. Well, I look at Ren and I say, "Well, I guess we all are going." So,
is that okay? I have a feeling that I was maybe left out of that invite.
I mean, she invited herself, so might as well just tag along with this, I guess. And we'll hatch out the information down the road. But yeah, I guess we all are moving. So I make a nice slight turn and just walk off toward the doorway.
All right, Ren, what are you doing?
Is there anything still at the table? Like
Uh,
leftover?
not really. Not really.
Kind of killed everything.
Yeah, there's a couple wedges of lemon, some celery, maybe
Is
an
there any,
eighth of a
like-
drink.
I'll take the rest of the drink and just go
All
on.
right, you get that sloppy little bit at the end there. All right, man. You down it and look around feeling not very satisfied with getting something to eat. So that's definitely on your mind. You turn around and head out the front doors. You guys all kind of congregate. And as you start walking towards what looks like a main kind of thoroughfare that might head into kind of another zone, you guys are all taking in some of the shops and you know, some of the sights and sounds. Really interesting areas around. Lots of different things like weapon shops and magical trinket shops and all kinds of little, you know, knickknacks and souvenirs and great shit. You guys pass through this area, and as you do, Geiger, she jumps over towards you, Ren, and just playfully wraps her arms around your like neck and leans on you like a kid having a bunch of fun at a carnival. And as she does, she lets out a loud kind of giggle and goes, "This is the first time I've been out in over a year." And as she says this, it fucking makes your heart stop for a second. You had no idea that that's the kind of time frame this individual's working with. And even though, you know, it definitely feels strange having her jump over on you like that, you hear her say this and it really fucking resonates with you. How do you
How is
want to
she
respond to that?
How is she grabbing me right now? Like is she is she behind me with her arms like kind of like
No,
over?
it's kind of to the side of you and reaching out over one shoulder and just kind of kind of a
Headlock.
yeah, essentially like a friendly headlock. So
I'll look at her. How long do you think you have?
she lets go right away and gets a little bit quiet, and she goes, "No way to tell." As she says this, you guys actually approach a large kind of passageway that seems built into a solid section of the stone outer wall of this area. This passageway seems to simply have a large kind of cave beyond it, or not a cave, a tunnel, much like something that would be paved and going through the side of like a mountain from one side to the other. Those kind of same dim, kind of high pressure sodium lights with the kind of oranges, kind of harsh light shining down, reflecting off of what looks like what we would consider like a modern kind of highway road. As you look forward, all you can see is darkness in the distance, and it seems to go on for a very long ways. Standing at either side of the opening, there are people dressed up in almost like porter outfits, very clean cut, buttoned up, and fastidiously kind of, tidy. And they seem to be taking tickets for people to pass through into a different zone. And as you guys walk up, you see Lars simply strides forward and he nods at the ticket taker and simply says, let's see, he kind of looks around and he says, 4, 5, 6 of us. He says, 6 to the row, if you would, good sir. And the porter simply taps a couple of calculations into a small handheld device he's using. Almost looks like a sticker printer. And as he does so, 4 small tickets pop out. He hands them over, and then he hits a couple more things, and 2 additional pop out. He hands them over, and he just kind of nods at him and says, "Have a good day, sir," and turns on to the next person in the small line that's sort of forming. Lars simply steps back over to the side and waves all of you guys forward and says, "Let's go," and starts handing the tickets out to everybody. After you guys have each received one, it's kind of hard for you to grip it, Ymir, but you are able to at least kind of have it stick to the edge of your fucking fingertip. Not really sure of what to do with it. You guys start walking forward into the tunnel. You all get a very strange sense of vertigo, as after just a few steps from what was just a few moments ago, early afternoon, you all emerge into what is colloquially known as the row. And as you do so, it is early evening, and all about you is an environment of festivity, debauchery, and decadence. And right away, the rhythm of the music that you hear and the atmosphere of revelry starts to permeate you guys. And you realize that you guys have just hit the fun part of town. And that's where we'll go ahead and leave it for today.
Do I know if this is one of the layers that I was researching, so to say?
Yes, it is. It absolutely
is. This the third layer?
This is the 3rd layer, the innermost layer, yes.
Cool. Okay.
And now, bow your head for the patrons. BKZJT, Rapid 3642. Andy Sasa, Nova Rose, Kelly T, Tommy Gunn. The Z24 Colts, Jess H, It's. If you would like a special thank you at the end of each of my videos, and some other cool stuff as well, visit patreon.com/homegrown lore. Thank you.